Oh, shit. Well, that didn't work out so well. Don't you ever find a lens and be like, think this is the one? What's going on, everyone? My name is Tim and welcome to my YouTube channel. And today we'll be reviewing the Sigma 28 to 45 1.8 DG/DN art lens. Now, I know a lot of YouTubers out there kind of go over the technical aspects of this lens. I'll kind of go over the brief specs about this lens and then just kind of share with you my overall experience. Okay, let's go over build quality. Now, this is a Sigma art lens, so it definitely has a standard art design when it comes to the smooth aperture ring and then the smooth zoom ring. Nice quality metal finish and weatherproofing for durability. And the best part about this, it's definitely made for photo and video. It's perfect for gimbal work, even though it is bigger. The internal zoom allows you to just balance the gimbal once without willing to change your balance mid-shoot when you're using a gimbal. When it comes to video work, I use the 24 to 70 millimeter lens a lot. And sometimes when you're balancing on a gimbal at the 24 side, but you want to get a tighter shot to like either 50 or 70 millimeters, it throws off the balance and you kind of have to stop mid-shoot and try to, adjust your gimbal real quick so you can get a nice quality shot. Another great thing about this lens for me is, like I said, coming from the 24 to 7 millimeter 2.8 is it shares the same filter size. Even though I do use some step up rings from time to time, if I'm shooting with my Sigma 85 millimeter, I could just swap this in and out and it's not going to be a huge issue, which is amazing. Now with the autofocus, it's very fast and accurate and very responsive. Same thing with the zoom and focus ring. Now, it kind of threw me off at first working with the previous lens that I used to use all the time, the 24 to 70. And what did kind of throw me off a little bit was the amount of the short throw. Going from 28 to 45 is not the same as going from 24 to 70. So that kind of is something that I kind of got used to over time. All right, let's talk about image quality. The sharpness is your typical clinical Sigma sharpness, which I definitely am a big fan of, and it's very consistent with the entire focal range. It's sharp in the center and even on the sides. When it comes to chromatic aberration, it's well controlled, minimal fridging at wide apertures. For the bokeh, it's very smooth and pleasing. This is probably the biggest selling point about this lens that I'm a huge fan of. I've noticed that I don't shoot at the 7 millimeter focal range when it comes to like a 24 to 70. It's that perfect sweet spot, especially when you're shooting portraits, because if I'm shooting like in a garage or in a nice environment, I could swap out to like a 35 or 28 millimeter look for a portrait, or even punch in a little bit at 45. And you don't really notice the difference when it comes to a 45 to a 50 millimeter. But you do kind of feel it on the wide end, because being wide at 24 to 28 is a huge difference, but not a deal breaker for me. But when it comes to portraits, normally you're kind of shooting within that 35 to 50 millimeter because you don't really want a lot of distortion inside your image unless creatively that's something that you're aiming for. You're probably aiming for a wide to ultra wide zoom lens. So let's dive into the fun part about this lens. Now, the focal range of this lens gets as wide as around 28 millimeters all the way to a 45 millimeter. Now, I know that might not be a lot for most people, especially with zoom lenses out these days, but the biggest selling point about this lens is it has a constant aperture of 1.8. With that being said, this lens weighs about a whopping 2.1 pounds, which is heavy considering a zoom lens of this focal range, but it's the 1.8 that makes it worth every ounce. Now, it does have autofocus. Unfortunately, no image stabilization. However, with most modern bodies nowadays come with image stabilization. It's not really a deal breaker for most, or for me personally. Okay, so let me share you with my experience with this lens. Now, I shoot a lot of fitness content and portrait work, and I've kind of noticed that this lens is probably my favorite just because I've always wanted that prime look, but I didn't really want to commit to just one prime lens or a few prime lenses. It keeps me from having a lot of equipment on site, and also too, like I said, kind of swapping lenses from time to time. When I'm shooting, I've kind of noticed that I don't like to distract my model by switching out a lens. Or let's say when you're at a shoot, you sometimes shoot way more on the wide end because you had that lens on longer than you did more at a compressed side like 50 millimeter. So it is great when I'm finding a shot that's perfect for wide, and at the same time I can punch in real quick for another 30 seconds to get another good solid 3 to 5 shots. I'm the type of person that shoots a lot of run and gun situations. Even having an 85 millimeter is not ideal, just because like the image is so compressed and I have to move far from my subject. It kind of doesn't help in a lot of situations. If you're into like documentary, I think this lens is perfect for you because not much people kind of go further past 50mm or 70mm. But if that's something that you do, let's say like sports, like you're shooting a baseball game or a football game, you're gonna need something like a 70-200 or even a 100-400mm lens. For overall fitness photography and regular portraits and environmental portraits, this lens is a beast. Now, with that being said, this lens just kind of made everything a little bit easier for me. I know it's a little bit bigger, being a little over 6 inches, but what I've noticed with this lens is since it doesn't have to be zoom in and zoom out, sometimes I like to shoot foreground elements in my photos, and the best part is if I zoom in, I'm not gonna hit anything because this lens is not gonna get any bigger or smaller. So it is a huge plus. So if you're a vlogger or someone who just likes to take quality pictures from time to time, this is probably not the ideal lens just because of the size of it. Now, when you pair it up with the full frame camera, it's just a bigger package and it's really not ideal. So to wrap things up, I do recommend this lens if you're a person who kind of wants to step up their content. Yes, I know this lens is heavy, but if you're anything like me, you don't want to be switching lenses in and out. So like if you're doing an event or like a wedding, this lens is perfect because you definitely get that prime look without having 3 to 4 prime lenses on you and switching out time to time. Especially when you're like trying to capture a moment and you can't recreate it, this is gonna be your favorite lens. Now, if you're a portrait photographer, this lens is perfect because you could shoot environmental portraits or you could shoot standard portraits. Either way, this lens is gonna be your best friend, and it is mine now. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and comment below, and I appreciate all your support. See you guys later.